we may continue encouraging and exhorting one another to righteousness, because that is why we are brothers and sisters, and that is why we all belong to the family of God. Now, there are many events that have taken place around the region of Middle East. Many interesting events, even of late, there are many threats that affect the entire globe. Every time there's a threat between the nations of the Middle East, there is an experienced by humanity. Many people had been raised from the dead, even though it gives the worst kind of testimonies today. But I want to tell you one thing. Many great historical events that spiritually affect the human race have taken place in this region. And one of the great stories that catch my attention is a story that happened about 3,000 years ago. There was a king in the land of Syria. The king was called Ben-Hadad. Ben-Hadad, we find his story in the book of 2 Kings chapter 6. From verse number 24, the Bible says, "And it came to pass that King Ben-Hadad gathered up his hosts and went and besieged King Ben-Hadad of Syria gathered up his hosts and went and besieged the city of Syria." Now you realize the city of Syria were the people who had been taught to keep the commandments of God. These ones were the nations, the people of Israel, who of course had been given the oracles of God. They knew the God of heaven. But God had warned them, "If you do not keep my words, I will lead you to a point." If you read the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse number 53, God had warned them, "If you do not obey my words, if you are not diligent to my words, I will make you eat the fruit of your own flesh. You will eat your sons if you are not diligent to my words." And so we are told that a time came around 3,000 years ago that Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, attacked the land of Samaria and besieged this city. The Bible says, verse number 25, "And there was great famine in Samaria, and they besieged it until the head of an ass's head cost 80 pieces of silver." Now that was 3,000 years ago. Imagine buying a donkey's head for boiling for 4 pieces of silver. That is about 80 pieces of silver 3,000 years ago. Of course, the value will be so high today. So imagine, that is what they are buying for delicacy. There is great famine in the land. The Bible continues to say that, and the fourth part of a dove's dung costed 5 pieces of silver. Now, many people have tried to understand what exactly does the Bible mean when they say that these people bought a dove's dung at 5 pieces of silver. Some people have said, no, actually, they are not. It's not the original dung. Maybe they bought a coarse grain that has been beaten off, and it's almost like chaff. That is what they bought. The fourth portion of it, they bought for 5 pieces of silver. But there's a great Jewish historian who's called Josephus. Josephus says, you know what? They actually bought an actual dove's dung, which they used as salt during that time, because the siege was so terrible. They did not have any source of food. So the Bible says things were very expensive. Verse number 26 says, "And it came to pass as the king of Israel walked by upon the wall, there cried a woman, was passing by upon the wall. There cried a woman unto him and said, 'Help my Lord, O king.' The king turned to the woman and said, 'If God cannot help you, from whence will I help you?'" And one of the most important lessons we learn from this experience, there are certain moments, many moments, when even the leaders of the land don't have solutions to our problems. So the king confesses to this woman, "If God is not able to deliver, what are you expecting from me? How will I deliver you? How will I help you?" Most of us have put our trust and our confidence in political leaders. But I want to assure you 3,000 years ago, they didn't have solutions. Even to death, they still don't have all solutions for humanity. And so the king cries and says, if God cannot deliver you, how will I help you? Out of the barn floor or out of the wine press? Actually, the king is trying to tell this woman, the barn floor is empty. There is no grain that is being crushed. Where do you expect me to get? Look at the wine press. It is dry. There are no juices flowing. Where will I get food for you? Then the king said, okay, I will listen to you. Gave her an opportunity because the king was empathizing with the condition of this woman, and her cries had reached the leader of the land. Imagine, you are a leader. Sometimes this situation finds fathers. Fathers, the children are coming back and then they are in need of certain things. And imagine you're not in a position to provide. Some of us fathers who are in this desperate situation decide to wipe out their children. Decide, I'll kill the children, I'll kill my wife, and then I'll kill myself. Some husbands and wives say, no, we will just wipe out each other. And many of these cases are prevalent in this generation because people don't know the source of help. The king says, I don't have solutions. But he asks, what ail you? What aileth thee? Verse number 27, what aileth thee? And the woman said, verse number 28, and the woman said unto the king, this woman, she's pointing to a woman beside her. This woman, she said to me, let us eat your son today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. They had reached points where they were eating their own children. Why? Because they had forsaken the ways of God. God had told them, if you forsake my ways, I will make you eat the fruit of your own flesh. So it was a very difficult moment. Remember when we were studying the experience of Daniel, the Bible tells us Jeremiah said about his experience when they had taken their children hold and had cooked them. They were their meat during the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Lamentations chapter 4 verse number 10. So basically the point I'm trying to say that the generations of humanity that have lived on this planet have reached crisis moment where they don't have solutions from any man that liveth upon the planet. And so the woman says, this woman deceived me. They told me that we eat our son today, and tomorrow we will eat her son. And then you know what we did? Verse number 29, we boiled my son, and we ate him. And then tomorrow we woke up, and I said to her, where is your son that we may eat him? And now she has hid her son. She's hiding her son. And yet we ate mine yesterday. What's wrong with her? Please, king, give us a solution. Oh, the king was so distraught by this situation. The Bible says that when verse number 30, when the king heard the words of this woman, he rent his clothes and walked by upon the wall, and people looked at him, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. So the king had reached desperate moments. He stripped himself naked. He did not know what I said, the sons, that the wrath that I'm experiencing is going to fall upon the man of God. Why? What has Elijah done? Elijah is a child of God. What has he done? Actually, he is the prophet who can help them reach God in such desperate situations. Now he's been the one now he's the one whom they want to wipe out. Let me tell you one thing. Sometimes earthlings, sometimes human beings, in desperate situations, when they are so desperate, instead of seeking the Lord, they attack the people of God. Now they say to the pastor, Pastor, the king swears and says, God, if I survive today, I must kill the pastor. He turns his wrath and anger and says, this man, he ought to have prayed for us, and he's not praying for us for solutions. What we are going to do, we are going to wipe him out. The Bible tells us that this is not new with the human race. Even towards the end of time, God is going to bring the earth to a situation where there will be a great crisis, and the crisis at the end of time will also stir up the leadership to wipe out all the Christians, because they will conclude the Christians are the source of all the tribulations and all the pandemics that are being experienced upon this world. So it's not a new thing. that the leaders of the world will turn against the church of God and say, now we will wipe you out because you seem to be the source of all our problems. You say that you have access to the omnipotent God, and yet your God seems to be punishing us. We are now going to avenge on you. Oh, brothers and sisters, the Bible says, when all these things was going on, verse number 31, I think, verse number 32, Elijah sat in his house, and the elders sat with him, and the king sent a man from before him, and the messenger reached, Elijah said to the elders, see that this murderer has sent a messenger to take away my head. It's not before he reaches here, please shut the door and hold him at the door. Please resist him, hold him back, because the feet of his master is behind him. And while Elijah was still speaking, the messenger arrived. Now, I have been trying to understand who spoke those words in verse number 33. I've been trying to understand, did Elijah say that this is the evil of the Lord? Why should I continue living any longer? Were those the words of Elijah? You know, I've been trying to understand that, but I was going through several Bible commentaries, and certain commentaries say, the king also arrived and said to Elijah, he was remorseful of the decision that he had made, that he wanted to kill Elijah. So he told Elijah, I'm sorry, but I believe that this is the evil of the Lord. Do we have a reason to continue living on this planet? Verse number 1 of 2 Kings chapter 7. Elijah spoke and said, hear the word of the Lord. Tomorrow, around this time, that means Elijah is giving an ultimatum of 24 hours. In the next 24 hours, shall a measure of fine flour cost 1 shekel. I don't know the values of those coins, but a shekel, of course, is cheaper than 40 pieces of silver. He says that tomorrow around this time, within 24 hours, I declare that a measure of fine flour shall cost a shekel, and 2 measures of barley shall also cost a shekel at the gates of Samaria. Wow, that was a powerful declaration. It is the point where the humanity is at its desperate. Elijah gives a solution that looks unbelievable, a solution that does not make any logical sense. The Bible says in verse number 2, and the Lord in whose hand the king leaned said, Elijah, I don't think you're making sense. I don't think you understand what you're going through. Unless the Lord opens the windows of heaven and pours out manna like he did. But if God does not do that, there is no way a measure of fine flour will cost a shekel. There is no way 2 measures of barley will cost a shekel. Elijah said to him, I see you don't have faith. Because you don't have faith, you will just see it with your eyes, but you will not eat of it. Oh, Bible students say that the following day when the breakthrough happened, we are told that this man was trodden underfoot, and the people stepped on him as they were rushing to get these cheap maize meal and barley at the gates of Samaria because of his unbelief. One of the things that I've come to appreciate, even Jesus Christ keeps repeating over and over to his people, when the Son of Man shall come, will he find faith upon the earth? There are many things, we've become so enlightened on many things that it is becoming difficult for us to believe on spiritual victories. We don't believe spiritual things because we've become so enlightened. Everything must make sense and everything must be scientifically proven. Even matters of faith now, we reason too much. And we must logically understand everything, and yet that is not going to be faith. And so Elijah says, it's going to happen. You're going to see, but you're never going to eat of it. The verse number 3, the Bible says, now there were four lame people who sat at the gates of Samaria. Now, these